A very good afternoon to all of you. I welcome you all for the Day 2 Session 3 of AICTE IST sponsored online refreshment program on developing security IoT applications. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speakers, Ms. Archana Chaugale ma'am and Mr. Manish Belande sir. Archana Chaugale ma'am has completed her ME Computer Engineering from Mumbai University, having more than 14 years of experience in research and education, has received the Best Social Impact Project Award by TechNext India 2019, have published various research papers in reputed national and international journals. Her research areas are embedded system, IoT, cloud computing, distributed system, web programming, e-commerce, and data analytics. Our second speaker for today is Mr. Manish Belande sir. He has completed his ME in Information Technology from Mumbai University, having more than 13 years of teaching experience in research and education. Sir has published various research papers in reputed national and international journals. His research areas are embedded system, IoT, cloud computing, data science, e-commerce, big data, and analytics. Thank you so much, Archana ma'am and Mani sir, for accepting our request and sharing your knowledge with our participants. Now I request our speakers to please take over and start the session. Over to you, sir.
Now it is.
Yes,
Ashwini
sir.
ma'am.
Now it is visible.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Thank you,
introduction,
sir.
Ashwini ma'am. So very good afternoon to you all. This is Manish Belande, and I welcome you all for the today's session. That is the IoT applications and protocols. So these are my contents. Actually, this is my flow from where we are going to starting with our introduction that gives an architecture. Then we have the layers, and then we start with our protocols. So this is my basic introduction. These are my contents that I am going to cover during this session. Now starting with the IoT. Now, as you people are very much aware about and what is an IoT. As from the past 2 days, you people are attending these sessions, so you people are very much familiar now what is the internet of the things. So as you know that internet, which is nothing which has become the essential part of our life nowadays. Without it means we people are actually you can say addicted to the internet. Now using this internet, by using this internet, we are connecting the things which makes our world very small, right? So using this, we are connecting to devices which is nothing but than smart devices, which is called like the smart devices that has been that has been used mostly in the embedded system. So I'm just taking one short brief about the what is an IoT. So the IoT, that is the concept, it has been introduced by the Kevin Ashton, which is he bring this concept, or you can say that we refer this term in a presentation of Procter and Gamble in 1999. Okay, so nowadays we know that every area, device, sensors, and software are etc. connected with each other. So that is the main duty of the IoT. As just I want to one more point that IoT is not it's an independent technology. It has been again you can say the combinations of various devices and technology that makes it the IoT. So here the ability to access this device through obviously nowadays we are having the smartphone as so that through the smartphone we can operate the various devices. So the ability to access this device through a smartphone or through a computer, which is known as the IoT, which is also called as IoT. So these devices are accessed from the distance that securely communicate with an Internet of Things platform. So this is the basic introduction about an IoT. So now just moving further, that is called as an architecture. So obviously for any technology, uh, the base thing that is nothing but an its architecture. So this is the fundamental architecture of IoT, which consists of the three layers. So the first one is the perception layer, second one is the network layer, and third one is your application layer. So now the perception level, which consist of the sensors and actuators. So now these are the basic, you can say the basic things, or you can say the raw materials that has been required for any IoT. These are the sensors and actuators are nothing for collecting the data that from the live environment. Means whatever the surrounding things are happening, or whatever the things are there nearby surrounding, it will capture that and it will send to the further, that is called as the network layer, which one is the second layer, network layer, that consists of the routers and the gateway. Now we are very much uh, useful, or we can say we are very much aware that these are the routers and the gateway are useful for the successful communication that transmits the data from source to the destination. So that's why the third layer that comes called as the application layer. The application layer that consists of the cloud, where we can store our data, whatever the transactions that are been taking place between the source device and the destination device, or the vice versa. So that data can be get stored into the cloud, or clouds are nothing but the kind of the servers where we can store our big data, you can say. So these are the three basic fundamentals layer of IoT architecture. That okay. So now we are moving next. So this is the one of the example of IoT architecture uh, that that gives the example of smart lighting system that contains the obviously which have the following components that consist of the following components, where you can see the cloud gateways, streaming data processors, data lake, big data warehouse, control application, machine learning, user applications, and data analytics. And these are the means in this example we can see the intelligent lighting system where user can operate the various you can say the devices of the lightning devices that through its mobile phone. So that's why the first thing that is the cloud gateways. Cloud gateways is the bridge between the cloud providers and the business units. Mostly cloud gateway consists of routers, servers, other devices that enable the traffic to flow in and out. Now next one is your streaming data processor. What is streaming data processor? That is mostly useful for the real-time processing of continuous streams of data in the motion. Then we have the data lake. The data lake is a storage repository that holds the vast amount of raw data. So that data can be raw data, that can be either a structured data or an unstructured data. Next one is the big data warehouse, which is an architecture for data management and organization, with the goal of providing rapid analysis across the broad range of information type. Next one we have the uh, next one we have the control application, or you can say the where we through which we can control these devices, just like here in the case of with the help of the mobile, where you can control the various devices that has been get connected. Next we have machine learning. So machine learning, it uses the concept of artificial intelligence that provides a system behavior like as per the user requirement, when the devices should be get on and off automatically. So that's the main purpose of using this machine learning. Next one we have the user applications. User applications, that it is a device or the mobile phones. Here in this case of our example, we use the mobile phone, from where he can control the system as per the requirement. And last one is your data analytics. So data analytics is the process of examining the data set in order to find the trends and draw the conclusion about the information. So this is a just example of a smart lighting system. This is an IoT based, and it consists with the obviously the things we are told that the things are equipped with the sensors and the actuators to perform the command that has been received from the cloud. Now these are again one of the important thing about this, that is the IoT layers. So here we are having the total 7 layers. It's called as the IoT reference model. Okay, so it starts from the layer 1, which is the physical devices and the controllers. So this one we can call as the layer 1, which are also called as the things in IoT, and mostly it contains the sensor devices, machines, intelligent edge nodes of all types. This device is mostly useful for the capturing the data and providing to the further layers, and provide that data to the upper layers for the further transmission. Next one is the layer 2, that is the connectivity layer. The the connectivity layer mostly that has been useful for the communication purpose. This mostly it is coming to the networking part, whatever the transmissions of the data right from the source to destination is useful for the communication and processing units. Mostly this layer consists your routers, your switches, your servers, etc. Mostly that has been useful for the communication purpose. Next, third layer, which is called as an edge computing. So it has been used for the data element analysis and transformation. Means this layer brings the computation and the data storage closer to the location where it is needed to improve the response times and save the bandwidth. Now the fourth layer is called as the data accumulation. This layer is related to the data ingestion and data analysis. That includes your big data. That includes your big data, then the cleansing, streaming, and the storage of data. So this is the main purpose of your data accumulation. Next one is your fifth layer is called as the data abstraction. So data abstraction mostly useful for the accessibility. Means means there are a lot of accessibility drives to whom should we provide the data, whether it has been an authenticated data or an authorized user. So such kind of the things that can be takes place in this layer 5, which is called a data abstraction. Means there is aggregation and access. The things can be done over in this layer. Next one is the application layer. This layer comprised of the custom application that is actually making the use of the things data. And the last layer, which is called as the collaboration and the process. Actually, this includes the people, business, collaboration, and decision making based on the information that has been derived from the IoT computing. So these are the 7 layers of IoT reference model. So now we are coming to our protocols. We people are very much familiar that what do you mean by protocols and for what it has been used. The mostly protocols that has been used for transmission of the data and to perform the operation faster. So that is the main thing, main purpose of your protocols. So here we are having the 4 layers. Means in IoT we can use these 4 layers of protocols. The first one is the constrained application protocol, which is called as the CoAP. Second one is the message queue telemetry transport protocol, MQTT. Third one is your advanced message queuing protocol, that is AMQP. And the fourth one, which is that is the data distribution service, which is also referred DSS. Okay, so these are the main 4 protocols IoT are using. And again, the usage of this protocol depends on the application. So based on the application, the protocols that can any of one this protocol can be used. The first one, I'm just highlighting this first 4 protocols, and I am covering for my part is the MQTT. The first protocol, that is the CoAP, which is it has been mostly means it is the design to enable simple constrained devices to join IoT through the constrained network having the low bandwidth availability. So this is the major thing when you are having your low bandwidth availability. So in such scenario, this CoAP protocol is being used. This protocol is primarily used for the machine-to-machine communication and is particularly designed for the IoT system that has been based on the HTTP protocols. Now next one is your MQTT, that is the message queue telemetry transport protocol. So this protocol normally useful for the faraway tracking in the IoT. Means the primary challenge is to gather the statistics from many gadgets and deliver it of its infrastructure. Now this MQTT connects the gadgets and network with the packages and middleware. So mostly in IoT, this MQTT protocol is more widely used protocols because of this far away tracking. So this is the main, you can say the main feature of this protocol. And again, we are going to see that what are the what kind of the main features that has been get means why we are using this MQTT instead of HTTP protocol. So we are going to see into the coming slide. This one is your AMQP. It is the software layer protocol for message-oriented middleware environment. So it supports the reliable verbal exchange through message transport variety primitives like at most once, at least once, and exactly as shipping, exactly as soon as shipping. Now, these are nothing but that is being useful for the QoS, that is the quality of services. Next, there is the last is the data distribution services (DSS). It enables a scalable, real-time, reliable, excessive overall performance and interoperable statistics change via the submit subscribe technique. So this is the main technique that has been used for this protocol, and it uses to convey the high quality QoS to applications. Basic, just 4 basic protocols that has been used. That is the briefly I discussed. Now we are coming to this. I'm going to explain this MQTT, which is a message queue telemetry transport protocol. It's a commonly used protocol. Just now I told you in most of the IoT application, this MQTT protocol has been used. So we are just focusing here. We are just briefly I'm introducing this MQTT here. So it is a machine-to-machine connectivity protocol that has been invented by Dr. Andy Stanford Clark, which of IBM, and Arlen Nipper of Arcom in 1999. Then it is an OSS standard and an ISO standard. And the main thing is that it is the public and loyalty-free license. So we no need to for the it has been get free from this, means easily available, and it is a loyalty free, and mostly it has been used by the Amazon Web Services, IBM WebSphere MQ, then Microsoft Azure IoT, Adafruit, Facebook Messenger. So these so such kind of the cloud services that has been used mostly use this MQTT protocol. Now moving to the features, what are the main features of your MQTT? So it is an ideal if the processor resources are limited, if your processor is of means what we can say it's a less megahertz, means if the frequency of your processor is less and or the memory resources are limited, then it has the publish subscribe. It uses the technique of publish subscribe message exchange pattern. Then it works on the top of the TCP/IP. Then it has the QoS, that is the quality of service. That consists of the 3 main features, that is the at most one, at least once, and exactly once, that we are going to see in the further slides. Then we have the client then it also supports the client libraries for the Android and Arduino, C, C++, C#, Java, JavaScript, .NET. So easily it has been can be implemented. Then security wise, authentication using username and password, that is the encryption technique using the SSL and TLS. And we have the persistent. The MQTT has support for the persistent matches stored in the broker. Then the broker, you can say broker is nothing but a kind of the server that has been placed central, and through which we can access, through which the various devices can access it. And we have the MQTT SM, which is protocol for the that is being useful for the protocols network when we are using when we works on the TCP/IP networks. That example is the ZigBee. Now the applications field where this it has been mostly used, that is the home automation system. Then we have the healthcare. Then we have the mobile phone apps, that is the messaging, monitoring. Then WhatsApp also uses this protocol MQTT. Then we have the industrial automation, we have automotive, and we have the IoT applications in general. Let's see the working of this MQTT. We know that we have the just now I told you that it works on the publish subscribe technique. So MQTT is based on the client and server, and it uses the technique of publish subscribe, which is called as, and it has the one broker. MQTT server is called as the broker, and the clients are simply connected to the devices. As you can see in the diagram, then when a device, which is a client, wants to send data to the broker, we can call this operation as a publish. And whenever a device or the client wants to receive data from the broker, we call this operation as a subscribe. So this is the concept about the publish and subscribe. Let's take the example, the simple example of MQTT. That there is a device that has the temperature sensor and it wants to send his reading to the broker. As we can see, as I told, the broker is nothing kind of the server, centralized server through which the various devices are connected. And here you can see the temperature sensor, it has been shown. When the temperature sensor is sending, that is the publishing, means whenever the temperature, it senses the temperature, it will publish to the MQTT broker, and through that broker the devices that has been connected can access that. And whenever the devices wants the data to retrieve from the broker, which is called as the subscribe, so they can access it from the that broker, MQTT broker. Okay, so this is the schematic flow from the sensors to the device measurements, machine to machine communication that happens. So this is the simple example of MQTT. Now next one are the components. What are the various components that has been useful that has been used in MQTT? The first one I told you, the broker, which is the server that handles the data transmission between the clients. Then we have the topic, which is the place device that you want to put to retrieve a message to or from. And next when we have the message means the actual data that we are going to transmitting when publishing or from the topic, or send publishing to the topic. And we have the publish, it is the process a device does to send its message to the broker, and we have the subscribe where a device does to retrieve a message from the broker. Then this is the main, you can say the beauty of this, that is the, it has the mostly this MQTT protocol. So this is the, because of which the main popularity of this MQTT, because of it has 3 QoS levels, such as these are the levels. First one is at most once, second one is at least once, and exactly once. So at most once means the broker will only receive the published message at most once, means it will not give any acknowledgement, it will just will only receive the published message. Then we have the at least once. In this level, the publisher continuously sends the message until it receives the acknowledgement from the broker. So this is mostly commonly used in QoS level. At least one technique is mostly used for this. And exactly once, the publisher and the broker work in tandem to ensure that the subscriber receives message exactly once. It is the safest and most guaranteed QoS level, but it is also the slowest. Thus, this technique is used only when it is necessary. So this is the diagram, or you can say the technique that has been mostly used. These are the 3 techniques that has been shown in this figure of QoS levels using the MQTT protocols, that is the QoS0, QoS1 and QoS2, where you can see that exactly once we have the publish. When after receiving the publish, then it will acknowledge with the publish received, then we have the publish release, and then it will get completed. So that's why, because of these 4 procedures, means 4 communication, that is the handshaking signals also we can refer it. Because of this, that's why it works slowly. So this is about the QoS levels. Then the next we can come that why we use MQTT means this is the comparison. We can say that as we have the HTTP, then why we are going for MQTT. So here's the comparison table that shows that the with its respective parameters, that is with the help of design methodology, you can see that MQTT is data centric, HTTP is document centric. Then the architecture, like it uses, I just explained you, that is it works on the publish subscribe, and whereas HTTP works on the request response system. Then we have the complexity wise, it is simple, and HTTP is complex. Then the message size, where you can say the small with compact binary header that just of the 2 bytes in the size as it is using the binary data, whereas in the uh, HTTP it is the larger because partly because the status details is text based. Then the service level wise, it uses the 3 quality of service settings. Just now we have seen, that is the level QoS 0 level, 1 level and second level. Whereas the HTTP, all the message get the same levels of the services, so it doesn't uses that. Then as per the data distribution, it uses 1 to 0, 1 to 1 and 1 to 0, whereas in HTTP is only 1 to 1. And security wise, MQTT is more secure than HTTP. So this is the several reasons that that's why we are using in IoT use this MQTT protocol. Then we come to the brokers. So now broker plays an important role for the transmission of data between the devices. So there are so just now told the brokers are nothing but a kind of the server. So there are many brokers that implement the MQTT protocol. One of the most popular and commonly used, that is, which is the Mosquitto broker. Here you can see the diagram Mosquitto broker, which is an open source. It is easily available that implements the MQTT protocol. And again, the advantage, it is a lightweight and suitable for all the devices from the low power signal board like Arduino and ESP8266 to full computers and servers. So like these are the examples. Not examples. These are the types of the Mosquitto brokers like ThinkMQ, then ThinkStudio, MQTT.in, and we have the ThinkSpeak and Cloud MQTT. So these are the types of Mosquitto brokers. So now next, I'm just going to explain the steps which is the about the Cloud MQTT broker, which is the one of the best and easiest cloud-based Mosquitto broker. So how to means what are the various steps that how we can implement Cloud MQTT. So here how to use the Cloud. So just we need to go to the Cloud MQTT and register an account. Just type Cloud MQTT, you will get the link. So with the help of that link, just type Cloud MQTT, you will get the link and register to an account. Then we have to process the plus that creates the new instances. So here we need to create the instances. That gives you the green button, as you can see in this image. Get an instance of the MQTT based on MQTT based Mosquitto Cloud broker that Cloud MQTT offers. So here there are different instances that we need to create it over here. And next step, that is third step, that you need to write the name, like you need to give the name my MQTT underscore broker underscore instance, and you need to press the create new instance. So actually here I selected, you can see the name that I have been given, that I have been mentioned over here in the third step. And this is the plan. This is plan means they have means this is the, as we know that this is the cloud service with by AWS. So this is the plan. This plan is called as the Qt plan, means that has been freely available. But right now, once I had done into the past, at that time it is the freely available. But now it has been, they have stopped. They have been subscribing for this plan. Means nothing is free right now. So at that time when I had done this, so this plan is available, which is called the Qt Cat. So this is about here. In this way, we can create one new instance. So after creating, means I have created one broker instance before and name it try. But in your account, means while you will find only one that you have created. Then press it on once, press it on names and see the details. Here I can see that both the that is a try, means what are the devices that has been get connected to my system, means so that I can transmit the data successfully. So this is about this is the fourth step. Then next step, we can see the screen, that is here I can find the authentication details that any device will permit you, means that you can connect it to your broker. So here just we are interested in first 4 parameters, that is where we need to mention the server name, user, password, means what is the name of the user, and a port number. So here the important is your port number. And next, in this way you can just offer the that allows you to monitor and publish and subscribe happens within this broker. So here you can see that in the WebSocket UI, where you can transmit the message and where the message and where you are able to see what are the message that have been received. So it also shows the status of connection. So this is about the cloud MQTT broker. This is one kind of the simulator that has been services that has been provided by AWS. So that's all from my side. Uh, so this is about the MQTT protocol. Now the further protocol, that is the COAP, that has been that will be explained by Ms. Archana Chaudhary, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Are you able to show me one slide only? Slideshow is started.
Yes, ma'am. Slideshow is also on.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the Manish sir for giving this such a nice session based upon the MQTT. Good evening, all of you. Myself Archana Sogule. Today I'm going to discuss about one more protocol for the IoT, which are nothing but the CoAP. So what is a CoAP? It is a one more IoT protocol which are specially designed to work in the constant networks. So CoAP stands for Constant Application Protocol. It is a lightweight web transfer protocol which are specially designed for IoT applications. Now today I'm going to discuss about the brief introduction about the CoAP. Then I'm going to discuss about some features of the CoAP. Then I am going to discuss about the architecture of the CoAP. Then it's very important that we are going to see what is the difference between the CoAP and HTTP and what is the similarity between these two protocols. Then we are going to learn about the structure model of CoAP, what are the different message format of CoAP, what is the securities possible in the CoAP, and the last we are going to see what is the similarity between the MQTT and the CoAP protocol, because both are the IoT protocols, and what is the difference between these two protocols. So start with the introduction that I think everyone know that when we talk about the application layer, it normally uses HTTP protocol, it's hypertext transmission protocol, to provide the web services to the clients. But when we talk about the HTTP, it having some limitations, it having some constraints. What is that? It have the high computation complexity, it having the low data rate, and it require the high energy consumptions. So when we talk about the IoT applications, most of the devices work on the batteries. So when the comes into the point that the batteries means power consumption is there. So we needed one lightweight protocol which can support all the web services in the constant environments. So IETF, that is Internet Engineering Task Force, developed one lightweight protocol which are nothing but the CoAP. So we can say that the CoAP is a specialized web transfer protocol which we can use with the constant nodes and the constant networks. Now what are the some features of the CoAP? So all of you know that it's a web transfer protocol similar to the HTTP, but it is used in the constant environment. So when we have the resources, have the constraints, low bandwidth, we have the less powers. In that cases, we are going to use the CoAP instead of HTTP to provide the web services to the clients. Then it's specially actually designed for the M2M application, that is a machine-to-machine applications. For example, smart energy or building automations. Then it support the message exchanging, but it support the asynchronous message exchanging, which is very important in case of your IoT applications. Its structure is very simple, so it's a low overhead and the simple passing is there. It also support the content type and URI, Uniform Resource Identifier. Its caching capability is also simple, proxy is also very simple. Then it support both unicasting and multicasting, because multicasting means group communication, which is also very important in the IoT applications. It is based upon the UDP, user datagram protocols. And lastly, support the security with the help of DTLS, that is datagram transport layer security. Now, this is a basic architecture of the CoAP. When you talk about the CoAP architecture, it's actually based upon the REST architectures. So in the diagram, we can say that we have in the internet environments where we have clients, okay, but it extends the HTTP client to the client having the resource constraint, that is called the CoAP clients. So when we having the constraints environment on the internet, okay, when we have that clients having some constraints for the resources, your HTTP clients is now become the CoAP clients. So if there is a proxy device which will be bridges the gap between the constant environments and internet environment which are based upon the HTTP. So we can say that the CoAP is specially designed to provide the web services to the clients which having some resource constraints. So it is specially designed for the constant environments and which is very important in your IoT applications. Now, CoAP provides the URI and it supports the four different type of the REST methods, that is GET, post, put, and delete. It also supports the multicasting, that is group communication, that already I told about for the IoT applications. So we can say that in the single line that HTTP is used under the unconstrained networks, whereas the CoAP we can use under the constrained networks to provide the web services for the clients. So what is the difference between the CoAP and HTTP? Some points I mentioned here. The CoAP is based upon the UDP, whereas HTTP is based upon the TCP, that is Transmission Control Protocol. Then in the network layer, CoAP uses the IPv6 as the Internet Protocol version 6, along with 6 low PAN. What is the 6 low PAN? Low power wireless personal area networks. Whereas HTTP is based upon the IP layer. Then we know that CoAP support the multicasting, but the HTTP support only the one-to-one communication. Means it doesn't support the multicasting. Then when you go for the architecture model, CoAP support both the model, that is a client-based, that is client-server-based model and public subscriber-based model. Whereas HTTP only support the client-server model. Then CoAP does not need the synchronization between the communication, but HTTP needs the synchronization between the communications. Then when we talk about the CoAP overhead, it is a very less overhead and it's a very simple in the structure. Whereas a HTTP is a more complicated, means it's more overhead and it is a complex. And the lastly, CoAP is specially designed for the resource constrained networking devices such as the WSN, that is wireless sensor network, or IoT, or the M2M, that is machine to machine applications. Whereas the HTTP is specially designed for the internet devices where there is no issue of any resources. Now, when we talk about the structure of the CoAP, it having the two layers. The first layer is a message layer, which is specially designed to deal with the UDP and asynchronous switching. Whereas request response layer is concerned with the communication method and it deal with the request response messages. So when you talk about the CoAP, it supports the 4 different types of the messages. First one is a confirmable message, second one is a non-confirmable message, third one is the acknowledgement, and the fourth one is a reset. So these are 4 different types of messages we can transmit between the client and server. So when it transmitting the messages, again there are 2 types of the supports. There is a reliable message transport and unreliable message transports. Now when we talk about the reliable message transport, so here is the sender and the receiver, means client and server is there. So client will be send the confirmable message, okay, to the receiver continuously until it get the acknowledgement from the receiver. That means client will be send the message with the message ID 1337 and receiver will give the confirmation about that with the acknowledgement message. If receiver is failed to process this message, it can be give the response with the replacing the acknowledgement message with the reset message. So instead of the acknowledgement, it will send the reset because it is not able to give the response to the sender or the client. Now, when you talk about the unreliable message transport, here the sender means client will be sent the message with the message ID, but it will not accept any acknowledgement from the receiver. Okay, but the message may contain the ID for supervising in case of retransmissions. And if the reception means if the receiver is failed to process this message, it will be give the reply with the reset message. And when you talk about the request response layer model, the first type is a piggyback. What the piggyback say that here the client will be send the request using the confirmable message or non-confirmable message depending upon which type of the message you want to transmit. If the client sending the confirmable message to the server, it will be receive the responses, okay, with the acknowledgement, okay. But if you send in the non-confirmable message, it will not accept any acknowledgement from the server. Then what will do the server for the successful response? It will be send the acknowledgement which contain the response message, which we can identify by using the token. And for the failure responses, it will be send the acknowledgement failure response message. That means when we are sending the confirmable message from client to the server, if it is successful, it will give the output with the acknowledgement. Otherwise, it will give the unsuccessful output to the acknowledgement response for the confirmable message. But for the non-confirmable message, it will not accept any confirmation, means acknowledgement from the server. And then another type of the request response layer model is a separate response for the confirmable message. What we'll do in this case, if the server receives the confirmable message but is not able to respond immediately, it will send the acknowledgement message which is empty. So here it will be send the empty message from the server to the client with the message ID is same. Then if the after some time, suppose server is ready to give the response to this request, it will be send the new confirmable message, okay, to the client, and client will be reply to this message with the acknowledgement. And how to identify that this acknowledgement for same message is that we are having the same message ID, that is 0x50. So in this case, it will be at that time if it is not possible to give the response, it will be give the response after some time, but before that it will give the acknowledgement also. Then separate request and response for non-confirmable message. Now, when the client sends the non-confirm message, which will be indicate that server is no need to send the acknowledgement message, means no need to confirm it. And then server will be resend the non-confirm message with the responses only. Okay, so if you want to give the reply, it will be give that, but acknowledgement is not there from the server to the client. So this is called the non-confirm message where we don't accept the confirmations, that is acknowledgement message from the server to the client. Then CoApps also support the ping communication. That means whenever the client want to communicate with the server, the client means sender will be send the empty confirm message to the server with the message ID, and then server will be give the response with the empty reset message. So this is a pinging between the client and the server. Now the next important is that what is the message format of the CoApp? Because we can transmit the messages asynchronously in the CoApp between the client and server. But what is the format of the CoApp message? It's a very simple binary format. We can see that it is a fixed size 4-byte header it having. Okay, then it having the variable length token field. Next we're having the option field, and the last we're having the payload field. Now when we talk about the 4-byte header field, it divided into 5 different parts or 5 different subparts we can say. The first field or first part will be indicate that VER, that is version. It's a 2-bit field which is indicate the version of the CoApp. So this will be indicate which version of the CoApp you are using. Then when we having the next is a T is indicated the 2-bit type field which indicate which type of the message you are transmitting. It is 0 for the confirmable message and it is 1 for non-confirmable message. The next field of the header is that token length field. It is a 4-bit. Okay, it will be indicate the token length which is present in the message. The next will be having the code. It is a code a response field. It is a 8-bit length. And the last is the message ID field. It is the message ID will be the 16-bit fields. So we are going to see in the detail what is the use of this code field and the message ID field. So when we talk about the code field, we know that the code field is a 8-bit. What it indicate that? It indicate that what the message will be carried. Whether the message is empty means 0, whether the message having the request message or it having the response message. If the message carries the request, that means it having the value 1 to 31 in the code. If it carries the response, it having the 64 to 191 value. Then we can see in the diagram that your 8-bit also again divided into 2 different parts. The first one is a class and second one is a code. So the 3 most significant bits, that is 0, 1, 2, the 3 most significant bits form the class which analogous to the class of HTTP status code. And the remaining 5 least significant bits form the code that communicate with the further communications for the request and response messages. These are some examples I given here for the request code and the response code. For example, if the request code is a 0.00 means what it indicate? The message is empty. If having the code value is 0.01, the code value, the request code value of 0.01 means it is having the get method. Same thing for the post, put and delete. And when you talk about the response code again, if it is 2.01 code means it indicates it is a created, response is created. If value is 2.02 code means indicate the message is deleted. Like this, we have the different messages or different codes for that. So these are some example I mentioned here, where from that we can understand the what is there in the messages of your CoApp. Now, when we go for the next field of the CoApp, there's the option field. Okay, it is similar to your HTTP headers. Again, in the option field will be defined the metadata. What is the data present? Okay, to the other end of your communications. So again, the option field having the option delta field, then option length field, then having the option delta extended field. It may be none, means 0. It may be 8-bit or 16-bit. Same thing for option length extended field. It may be none. It may be 8-bit or 16-bit. And the last is the option value. So again, in the option field also divided into 2 different parts: option delta, option length. Then we have the option delta extended field, option length extended field, and option value field. There's some example I given here. Okay, so for example, suppose URI host. What is the format of this string? What is the length of this? It is a 1 to 25 bytes. What it indicate that? It is a host name or IP address of the CoApp server on which the resource is being requested. One more example I put it here, URI port. What is indicate that? It's an unsigned integer. Its length is 0 to 2 bytes. What it indicate? It indicate the UDP port number for the CoApp server. Now we know that the CoApp support the security. So when we talk about the security, there are 3 main points or 3 elements for the securities are integrity, authentication, and confidentiality. So we know that DTLS, datagram transport layer security, can achieve all of this. So it is present in the application layer which protect the end-to-end communication. Now DTLS solve the 2 problems. So the first is a reordering of the messages and packet loss when we're transferring the messages. So it put the 3 implements: packet retransmission, assigning sequence number in the handshake, and the replay detection. Now when we are going to see the structure of DTLS, DTLS is avoid the cryptographic overhead problem which normally occurs in the lower layer security protocols. So there are two layers in the DTLS. First one is the bottom one which contains the record protocol, and top one include the three different protocols: alert, handshake, and application data. Now, chain cyberspace message also used to notify the record protocol to protect the subsequent records with the negotiate cybersuit and the keys. Then the record protocol protect the application data by using the key generated using the handshake protocols. Then when you talk about the outgoing messages, what will do that for the security? The protocol will be divided, then it will be compressed, it will be encrypted. Okay, then it apply the MAC, that is a message authentication code. And for incoming messages, what will do? It will reassemble the protocol, decompress it, decrypt the message, and verify that message. So record header consists of two things: content type and the fragment field. So what they indicate the content type? Content type will be decide what the content we can store or present in the fragment field. So there are three types of the contents: alert protocol, handshake protocol, and the application data. So when you talk about the handshake process, one simple example I given here, the handshake protocol is very complex. It involves the lots of exchange steps. So here the individual message can be grouped into the number of messages, that is called the message flights. So here the client will be send the hello, okay, to the server. Server will verify that message, that request, and again the client will be send the actual message with that. Then server will be send the server hello with the security, okay, server key exchange and server hello done. Then the server will be, then client will reply for the client key exchange, that is it may be use the chain cyberspace for the security, and then finish. When it is finished, it give the acknowledgement from the server to the client is the chain cyberspace is finished. So some way we can provide the security between the communication of the client and server using the handshaking protocol. Now, when we talk about the CoAP security, there are four different type of the modes. Four different type of modes means what? It may be the first mode is don't support the security, means no security. That time DTLS, datagram transfer layer protocol, is a disabled. But in the pre-share keys, DTLS will be enabled. What will do here? The list of pre-share keys where each key will be into the list of nodes which are used for the communication, and devices must support the AES cybersuits. What is the AES cybersuit means? Advanced encryption standard suits to provide this security. Next we are having the raw public key where again the DTLS is enabled, where device uses the asymmetric key pair without a certificate. Okay, then the device must support the AES cybersuits and elliptic curve algorithm for key exchanges. And the last, certificate. So DTLS is again enabled here, and devices can use the standard certificate, that is X5.09 for validation. So CoAP will be support the unicast communications where the client can be interact with the one server or the more servers. So in this case, the client, if you want to communicate with the three different servers, client must be know which server using the specific type of the security. For example, client must be need to know which certificates or raw public key or the PSK, that is pre-share key, is used with the specific server. So it will be needed to send this data to the client to communicate with the multiple server from the client to the server. Now, when you talk about the both the protocols, CoAP and MQTT protocols. Okay, so MQTT protocol explained by the Manish sirs, okay, and I explained about the CoAPs. Both are the IoT protocols, so they have some similarities also. That is CoAP and MQTT both are open standards. Both are better suited to the concerned environments. Both provide the mechanism for asynchronous communication. Both run on the IP, and they have the range of implementation for IoT applications. These are some similarities between the CoAP and MQTT protocol for IoT applications. What is the difference between these two protocols? So first we know that CoAP stands for Constrained Application Protocol, whereas MQTT stands for Message Queuing Telemetry Transfer Protocol. Now we know that CoAP uses the request response model, whereas MQTT uses the public subscriber model. Then when you talk about the message modes, it uses both synchronous communication and asynchronous communication, whereas MQTT only uses the asynchronous communication. When you talk about the transport layer protocol, it mainly uses the UDP, CoAP, but MQTT uses the TCP. And when you talk about the header size, the CoAP header size is 4 bytes, whereas the MQTT header size is only 2 bytes. Then we know that CoAP is based upon the RESTful services, whereas the MQTT not. Then we know that CoAP does not support the persistence. That's why it cannot use for the live data communication. But the MQTT support the persistence, so it used for the live data communication. For example, Facebook messengers or the WhatsApps, where we need the live data communication between the client and the server. Then message labeling is possible in the CoAP, whereas it is not possible in the MQTT. Usability and security, yes, it is used in the utility area network and has a secure mechanism. And MQTT mostly used in the IoT application, it is also secure. Now, when we talk about the number of messages, what different type of messages we can use in the CoAP, only 4 type of the messages we can use, whereas MQTT uses 16 different type of the messages. But when we talk about the reliability, the CoAP having only 2 level reliability, whereas MQTT is having the 3 level of the reliability, meaning more reliable. So MQTT messages are more reliable than the CoAP. And the last is the security. The CoAP having some standard, that's the IP secure or DTL is there, but MQTT don't have any standard to provide the security for the MQTT based applications of IoT. Thanks a lot. Any questions?
Thank you so much, ma'am.
There is any
There are
question?
some questions in the chat box, ma'am. Just a minute. Ma'am, the first question is, what are the standard ports of MQTT? Ma'am, can you hear me?
Can you repeat the question, Ashwini?
Ma'am, the question is, what are the standard ports of MQTT?
Okay. There is one standard port we can use for the MQTT protocol. That is called the TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. One port number is also reserved for this. That is 1883.
And ma'am, what is this COAP support memory? That is one question that has been put.
CoAP support the memory, but it's a limited size. For example, if we talk about the RAM, it support only 10 kilobyte of the RAM and 100 kilobyte of the ROM. Means it support the memory. It having its own memory, but limited size is there.
Okay,
Is any
okay,
other
okay.
question?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am. Thank you so much. Just a second. Thank you so much, Archana, ma'am, and Manish sir, for giving such a wonderful session. So, ma'am, please accept this memento.
Thanks a lot, Ashwini. Thanks for listening to today's last session.
We also have a memento for Manish sir. Thank you, Manish sir, for accepting. And please accept this memento as a token of appreciation from our department.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot, Ashwini, ma'am.
Feedback cum attendance link has been put up in the chat box. Participants, please fill the link. Thank you so much.
Once again, thanks a lot to everyone.